In 2016, the Association of National Advertisers tackled a very important topic in our industry, media transparency. And they released a landmark study in the summer of 2016 that really became a wake-up call for our industry. It forced all participants to step back and look at the ecosystem through a new lens. Over the past 5 years, the Association of National Advertisers has done a tremendous amount of work keeping the important issues of media transparency front and center. And they continue to tackle those vexing issues head on. To mark the 5-year anniversary of the ANA Media Transparency Report, we spoke with a number of industry leaders to hear more about how they adapted to changes that were initiated by the report, how they took steps to actually follow through on the protocols and recommendations that were part of that report, and to hear a little bit about their ambitions as we look ahead. In this video, I speak directly with Bob Liodice of the ANA to hear from him how the study came to be, where the future of media transparency is going, and a few things we should all be thinking about as we look ahead.
Not everybody believed that there was an issue. The United States had essentially been relatively free from any type of rebate activity or unusual media behavior for many, many years. Those were behaviors that essentially existed in Europe, in Latin America, and other parts of the world, but essentially was not necessarily part of the US. And when we started to hear whispers of, we'll call it, less than desirable behavior coming forward, we all had to, first of all, understand what the potential risks were and the types of behavior that were being exhibited. And then secondly, receive affirmation that, in fact, this issue was becoming increasingly widespread, with essentially more and more experts starting to come forward and talking to the board about the issue. They started to understand that, in fact, there really was a concern, which led to the approval of the ANA taking, as you said, that brave step towards moving forward and pursuing the Media Transparency Report. In 2015-16, when we really got into it, media transparency was essentially something that was focused in on rebates. But since that report has come out, we have essentially used transparency as a descriptor of behavioral activity. And for marketers to make optimum business decisions, regardless of whether it has to do with media or any other subject matter for that overall perspective, you need to ensure that you have the optimum amount of information to make the best marketing and brand decisions. Otherwise, you're going to sub-optimize your performance and leave money on the table. Defining success, I think, at first was, more mathematical in terms of, well, how many people downloaded the report or how many press mentions were there. But as we began to see how the report started to unfold, and there were 3 really key parts of it. First of all, it was the K2 study, the K2 intelligence report that really documented what, in fact, was taking place. Then there was the ubiquity report that essentially defined not only what the issue was, but some of the measures that needed to be understood by the marketing industry to ensure the full disclosure of the transparency and the issues that they needed to take up. And then third was essentially a revised client agency contract report that was crafted and produced by our general counsel, Reed Smith, that allowed for the understanding of how optimum media agency contracts should be defined. And that, perhaps in many ways, was one of the most important, because some of the marketers that we had one-to-one conversations with, and some of the biggest brands in the United States and in the world, hadn't rethought about their media agency contracts in years. we have to stay even more vigilant. But I don't think that we have been as successful, which is one of the reasons why ANA recently issued an RFP to essentially go after and better understand the programmatic media supply chain. And part of that was inspired by the great work of our equivalent in the UK, ISBA, that issued a report last year that indicated that many of the supply chain issues that have existed over the past few years have become increasingly complex, and the ability to match, or I should say track data and money flows through that is becoming increasingly challenged. We need to use transparency as an action item in all of our respective behaviors. At a trade body level, we have to stay alert to what in fact may be taking place that is leading to greater degrees of opaqueness. And for marketers who are obviously juggling lots of balls, they need to ensure through CMO, through CFO, and for everybody related to brand and media management, that they have to challenge themselves to ask whether they have sufficient data, measurement information, and overall perspective to optimize that decision-making process. There's mystery, there's margin, and we should not tolerate a supply chain that is riddled with mystery, with complexities. Our supply chain partners, agencies, the publishers, the DSPs, the SSPs, everyone should do their very, very best to open the vaults and let everyone see what in fact is taking place. Now, that may be somewhat wishful thinking, but I think it's at the heart of what we've been talking about during these past few minutes, which is our goal is to optimize marketers' investment spending, because when brands succeed, everyone succeeds. Money flows throughout the supply chain. But if we are sub-optimizing brands' ability to succeed, then we are sub-optimizing the beneficiaries of where all of that investment should be going. So coming back to your question, which is what can marketers do? Become smarter, become more intelligent about it, dig deep,